of Tevilas Kelim. Tevilas Kelim is a halacha that vessels that are used for known as vessels that are used in the preparation of food, yes. If they're purchased from a non-Jew, they were owned by a non-Jew, and they have to go through Tevilah before using them. This only refers to vessels that are used for food preparation or preparing or serving food. Does not apply to handymen or handywomen that have a workbench and they have a hammer, they have a saw, all these, even though they're made out of metal, but those are not instruments. It's not equipment that's designed for food prep. Okay, so now, by the way, before we actually get inside and dive into the subject, many poskim hold that the chiyuv, the obligation for Tevilas Kelim, is min haTorah, because it's an asmachta. Because there's a pasuk that alludes to it, and this has ramifications in halacha as well, as everything does, because we know that a cotton is not mem on something that's deraisa. You can send a child to do something, they're entrusted, they're a responsible child for something that's rabbinic in nature. But if it's min haTorah, which means to say that if you want to, let's say, total a bunch of vessels, and you have a child who's responsible, 11-year-old girl or boy, they cannot total the kelim without a godel imid al gabei, without an adult, a religious adult who's watching them. They can do it, they're being watched. But to entrust them on something that's midaraisa, Torah does not give them that power. Now, we're giving us the spiritual dimension of this mitzvah, just like Hashem, He segregated us. He says, with the holiness of the food that we consume. Hashem says we have a special diet for the Jewish soul. It should be refined diet. Hashem says, forbidden foods that blemish our souls will not be consumed. They said you can only have foods befitting the holy nation that serve Hashem. Hashem commanded us the vessels that we use to prepare the food. They need additional holiness. Foods that are vessels that are purchased from a non-Jew. They need tevilah in order that they could leave the tumah of a nachri and be ushered into the holiness of a Jew. Similar to a convert who becomes into the Jewish nation through tevilah, through immersion in a mitzvah. This is what the Torah says, speaks about in the parsha of Klei Midyan. And now we're going to quote several psukim from the story with Midyan, when the Jews had the loot from Midyan. Elazar the Kohen says to the men of the assembly and the coming from war. This is the statute, the Torah that Hashem commanded Moshe. The gold, the silver, and the copper, as habarzel, the iron, habdil, the tin, as they put us in the lead. Anything that comes in contact with fire, you have to purge it with fire. This is alluding to the laws of kashrut. V'toyer, we're going to learn soon that the word v'toyer is an allusion to the mikvah achramedi, the yischato. That's literally referring to the word of nida, which refers to the ashes that they use of the parah aduma that was sprinkling of that holy water. Whatever does not come in direct contact with fire, it gets purged with water. So just one second. So these psukim, first of all, they're alluding to the halachas about koshering. So we have the like-to-like principle. Something that gets absorbed through fire, gets purged with fire. If it gets absorbed with water, gets purged with water. It also alludes to the idea of Adar, bringing tahara, bringing purification to vessels, which is an allusion to the idea of tabling the vessels. We're going to learn more about it soon. I just want to also mention, before I take your question, it's very interesting. Everything is about hashgacha pratis. That Eva would always say, like Pavane would often say, we have what's called hashgacha pratis shabbat Torah. That in Torah itself, we see the hashgacha pratis, how it expresses itself. This week's parsha is Parshat Truma. It speaks about, the holy vessel that's been made from gold. So we started off with the Achzazov, Sakasat, speaking about the gold. And one more thing I want to say, that I'll take your question. I'm sorry, when I open the pipeline, it doesn't shut so fast. There's a Jewish expression, geld is water, that money is like mud. So then there's another expression that says that gold and silver were only created for the Beis Hamikdash. So you could have said, how could you reconcile these two statements? It seems to be contradictory. If you could have said, money that you use to pay bills, like blood, it's like you drag through it, it's tarred, we have to kind of schlep through, we do it. But money that we use to build Yiddishkeit, Chadorim, Mikvois, Yeshivas, well, Yiddishkeit, it's like Nivra Kesef Azav, Elo Shvu Beis HaMikdash B'Lvad. Gold and silver were only created for the Beis HaMikdash, for us to serve Hashem. Anyway, it's like a shmaka, but yes, question.
No. But it does.
That there are three opinions about that.
No. But it does touch fire, correct? Like when it's being made.
Yes. So I'll explain a little further. There are three opinions about glass. One opinion says, the most stringent opinion says it's like earthenware that cannot be koshered. Another opinion says it doesn't, on the opposite end of the spectrum, says it doesn't even absorb. And therefore it doesn't have to be kosher. By the way, some Sephardim maintain that opinion. And then you have in the middle opinion that says that it does absorb and you could kosher it. So in actuality, for year-round use, we do kosher glass. We do kosher. Yes, we do kosher. If it's from Chometz to Pesach, then we try to avoid kosher in glass. Okay. There are different opinions about it. Some people are stringent not to, but if a person's in a position where they can avoid the matter, okay, so that's wonderful. But it's permissible if one needs to do that. Okay. Now halacha beis gets into, I would say, the contextual background of what's going on here in the Chumash. Kli Midian shaloko b'nei Yisrael, the vessel of Midian that the b'nei Yisrael took kishlal milchemes Midian, from the loot of the war of Midian. How you built the ruim l'shimush b'nei Yisrael misholosh sibes were unusable from the b'nei Yisrael for three reasons. Forbidden foods were cooked in them. If you're now going to cook kosher food in this vessel, the taste of the isser is going to go from the vessel into the food. The kosher food. The second reason, the vessels became defiled from a tumas mess. It's going to defile the food and the person who touches them. The third reasoning is any vessel that comes from a nachri, that comes to in the Jewish possession, cannot be used in the context of food prep or serving food without toiveling it in a kosher mikvah first. So that's what gives it the holiness. So we see here that the Torah, halacha, treats the food we consume and the vessels that we use to consume the food and to prepare food with great sanctity. We're saying it has to go to the mikvah, has to become roi for shimish tov. We have to give it that kedusha. And now he's in Gimel. He's going to show you how we learn these things out from the psukim, which is why I said, according to many opinions, it's daraisa, because we have an asmachta, we have a pasuk that gives us this, that alludes to this directly. So these are the three things that I mentioned in this parsha. Anything that comes in contact with fire shall be purged with fire. That's the kashmir of the vessel from the forbidden taste that's absorbed in it. It says the extra word, and it's become pure. The Chazal, the rabbis learned out, rabbis of blessed memory learned out, besides, in addition to the actual kashmir of the fire, the vessel has to go through an additional purification process. That's the immersion into water, to usher it in to the holiness of Jewish nation. What does it mean, that's referring to the waters from the Paraduma. So a vessel became tummy because of tumas mes. You have to sprinkle it with the ashes from the Paraduma. Because Shematzina, we find Shamayim Shenis Orva Beifa Apara, the water that had the mixture of the burnt ashes from the red heifer of the Paraduma was called Meinida. To purify from the Tumas Mes. Ulam Rabbi Sina Darshu, the rabbis derive Shapazem Rumezes Mitzvahs Tevilas Kelim. Even in these words themselves, there lies a hint to Tevilas Kelim. Vushira Boyim saw, because it's talking about the size of the mikvah. And that's 40 saw, which Chazal teach us, is Maim Shekol Gufo El Bem. It's a body of water that's enough to envelop a human being, a person. Maim Shabem Trichim Litvah Zakli. So that's the minimum share that you need for a cleat to table a vessel, unless you're tabling a vessel in a wellspring. Then that's Matar B'chol Shahol. But if it's in a mix, it has to be 40 saw. By the way, now I'm going to share with you a little Hasidic insight. I'm trying to give the full experience. We're teaching halacha, but we have to. It's a beautiful word. First of all, the halacha is a mayim is mitar b'chol shul. A wellspring is mitar as long as it envelops the vessel, even if it's not 40 saw. It's mitar, but a mikvah has to be 40 saw. If you're tabling a vessel in a mikvah, has to be 40 saw, even though the vessel, let's say, is much smaller, it could technically be enveloped with less water. No, if it's in a mikvah, it has to be 40 saw. So the Rebbe explains, this is a sikha of the Rebbe. If my memory serves me, it's Yud Aleph. No, it's Yotes Kislev Tafshin Yud Aleph. The Rebbe has a beautiful sikha. Every sikha is beautiful. It's a fascinating sikha. The Rebbe explains that Chasidus, Yotes Kislev, it's a notion of Chasidus. Chasidus is compared to Amayim. Amayim is Mitar B'chol Shul. Hafat is Amayanis. And the revealed parts of the Torah are compared to a mikvah. So the Rebbe goes on to explain, to be able to bring tahara, to be able to purify a person's heart and their mind and their thinking processes, their entire being, they have to, when it comes to the revealed parts of Torah, they have to be fully immersed in Torah, totally immersed, total immersion, right? And then they can bring that tahara upon themselves. But when they learn Chassidus, because Chassidus, Alikus is Be'esgalus, the godliness is revealed, it's Metar B'choshu, a little bit of Chassidus in our system, right away, our thinking process, we're standing on a higher plane, so it purifies our mind. In fact, the Rebbe said to a famous Lubavitcher Rav in Yechidus, the Rebbe said, you should learn Nigla Biz Ibn Kop. That was Rebbe's Lashon. You should learn revealed parts of the Torah over your head. Why? Because over your head means like a mikveh. You have to be totally immersed in it to bring tahara. Okay. Halacha Dalet. After mitzvahs Tevilas Kelim nichtavo beparshas Achshoras Kelim. Achshoras Kelim, even though the mitzvah Tevilas Kelim is written in the context of with the halachas of kashering vessels. Im kol zeh mitzvah Tevilas Kelim ain't tului being Achshoras Kelim. The mitzvah of Tevila is not dependent on kashering vessels, which means what? Ki afilu kelim chadoshim aknoi minocha, even brand new vessels, which do not have to get kashered. Shelo yishtamish b'emel, that were never used. B'chol zo yisrichim Tevila min hatayra, they still need Tevila min hatayra. By the way, if the vessel does need to be kashered, the order in which it should be done is you first kasher the vessel, then you toivel it. But if a vessel does not need tevila, does not need chshara, doesn't need to be kasher, then you just get tevila, and that's it. Now, we're going to get into the different opinions about whether or not Tevilas Kelim is Deraisa or Derabanan. Hagam sheyesh min haposkim atzevim sheikah mitzvahs Tevilas Kelim in element Derabanan. Some poskim say that the main mitzvah of Tevilas Kelim is only rabbinic. But the Rasha shedosho la eine ela asmachtum, that the dosh is only an asmachtum. Ikomokim das reva poskim. Most poskim maintain that Tevilas Kelim is min haTorah. That Tevilas Kelim is min haTorah. Any questions so far?
After a vessel, you have to play like every single time. Like every time you flash.
No. I'm talking about if a vessel was owned by a non-Jew and it was used, so you have to kasher it, then you have to toivel it. If it's a vessel that's owned by a Jew, became not kosher, you just have to kasher. You don't have to toivel it because there's no need of field because it was owned by you the whole time. Now we're going to get into mysticism. We have mysticism, but we have mysticism. There's a famous myth out there that one's allowed to use a vessel one time before toiveling. Hashimish b'kli b'tem shenitbal. Also, l'ishtamish b'kli b'tem shenitbal. One's not allowed to use a vessel that's required to be toiveled without toiveling in a field derech, even on a temporary basis. Ulam isa ze'en element rabban. This prohibition is rabbinic. Also, somebody did violate this. They used a vessel that wasn't toiveled. The food does not become unkosher, does not become unfit for consumption, even though it was prepared in a vessel that wasn't toiveled. Not proper to do so, but the food is still kosher. One's allowed to use, to leave a vessel in the house, even though it wasn't toiveled yet. We're not afraid, someone's going to come to use it. No, you can leave it in the house. Can't use it. If someone did use it, the food's still kosher to consume. So what's the myth? The myth is, you can use a vessel one time before you toivel it. Where does that come from? It comes from another concept. That's the concept of disposable vessels. The whole idea in halacha, when we speak about a vessel, we're talking about something that has a certain inherent value to it. So a kala is getting married. She's going to go to the store. She's going to pick out the dishes she likes, the patterns. There's a certain affinity. I like these dishes. I like these pots. And you don't want them to get ruined. You want to save them. There's an attachment there. When you go to the store, and you get married, you send your husband, this is the 9x13 pan I want to get. There isn't this affinity. The 9x13 pan I baked with it just got ruined. Now you're buying a chatchila, it's a one-time use, it's a convenience issue. So there isn't that affinity, a sense of, it's a keli I want. So that's called a throwaway vessel. That does not require tefillah because it doesn't have the chashivut of a vessel. But now we're going to get into a substrate of this. What happens if somebody wants to take a disposable vessel and reuse it? So now we're getting into the plot thickens, the whole discussion. So some great, I'm talking about some poskim, some of the halacha authorities, contemporary, they hold. I spoke to a famous Rabbi Baruch. He told me if someone's intention is to reuse the disposable pan, then they have to toilet before even using it once, because by them that's a kosher vessel. Not everyone does that. There are plenty of leniencies because it at the end of the day there isn't that affinity to it if it breaks it. But I'm just bringing out the point. Some say toilet without a bracha if you're going to reuse it. But that's where the myth comes about. People, so one-time use. It's only if it's inherently a one-time use vessel. If it's a vessel that's meant to be kept, you're not supposed to use it without toilet in it. Now, we're going to get into another discussion, which really comes in later, but I cannot restrain myself. All right, it says in Hasidus that the ability to hold back from giving is a greater power than actually the ability to give. So now I'm not gonna be able to hold back. I'm gonna share with you an interesting piece of halacha. A sticker on a vessel. Let's say you go to Target, you buy a pot or something, right? It says $9.99. A sticker on a vessel is a chatzitza. It has to be removed. So you have to scrape it off. We can get with hot water, glue, whatever, get it off. Now, but there are types of vessels where the sticker itself is part of the chashivas of the vessel. Like for example, a Lennox dish. Lennox is like a fancy type of crystal. That sticker is the insignia. Oh, this is Lennox. I'm a crush of people. I spent I don't know. I spent 3 times the price of whatever other vessel cost, and I feel good about it. So they give you a sticker for that. Yes. So there, the sticker is part of the chashivut of the vessel. So it's considered to be bottled to the vessel, and you don't have to remove it. So just like when it comes to the automobile industry, you have the insignias on the car that right tell people this is an Audi or whatever. I spent. Okay, so this is the chashivut of the vessel, but a regular sticker has to be removed. Now, getting back to our subject at hand, what happens if you have a vessel that's very large? Some of them are so large you can't even fit them in a mikvah. I work in the food industry. Gosh, you have manufacturing facilities. You have kettles that are 300 gallons, 500 gallons, 900 gallons. I mean, these are swimming pools, or not a swimming pool, but they're huge. You even have vessels that are the size of this room, like in beer plant, and 3 stories high. They're massive tanks. Okay, so what's the story? A vessel that's too large to toivel, there's no heter to use it without tefillah. I feel the bishul kvar mekli mei upon me, someone cooked in there 100 times, bleed tefillah. Adain chai betefillah, you still have an obligation of toivel in it. Voslish tamish by one's not allowed to use it. Ve'lahan sittim beis when you feel scale and kashmala. We'll learn about towards the end of our subject how to deal with electric vessels. But regarding very large vessels, there are a few let's say points to cover. First of all, it's a very large vessel that gets built on premises and has to be taken apart, by an expert in the field. Then, if it's being built by a Jew, it's considered to be made by the Yid. It wouldn't need to be allowed. That's it. So there are some workarounds, so to speak. Or there's another way: if the vessel was already constructed and it's being put in, if you made a hole into the vessel, it becomes unusable. Then it gets rewelded. That would also be considered to be made by a Yid. There are other considerations. There's an opinion, I think it's the Kesav Sefer, or some of the Chasam Sefer, I believe it's the Kesav Sefer, who says that if it's clay miskar, vessels that are used only for commerce, the business, not clay food that's not being used to actually serve, bring people to your house or family members to serve with. It's miskar, that's not a problem. That's exempt because it's not the Psukim are talking about clay suda, vessels that in the context of being used for a meal. Okay. Halacha Ches gets into the types of vessels that require tevilah. Halacha Ches. Not all vessels that are acquired from a nochri are required to be teviled. Because the obligation to toivel are dependent on these details. The type of material that the vessel is made from, the usage of the vessel, if the vessel is purchased from a non-Jew, and the vessel became owned by the Yid. So 2 things have to happen: the vessel that was owned by a non-Jew, and a vessel that was then purchased by a Yid. Within that itself, it's only certain types of materials that are in the category of a chiyuv of tevilah by Kelim. Okay, we're going to see that inside. Now we're going to tell a story. Story time. Adar. So the Rebbe asked. I just found out which secretary the Rebbe was. I didn't realize this. Because someone I know who's a great nephew of this, Rabbi Rothstein, was a secretary of the Rebbe, I think also of the Rebbe, in the early years, like 1952, the Rebbe asked him for a pencil. And he was only able to find a pencil that was heavily sharpened down, very small. Gave it to the Rebbe, the Rebbe said to him, he couldn't find me a smaller pencil. A little humor, good. So he went out, and that same day or the next day, he bought the Rebbe a giant pencil, like the ones they have in the amusement parks. The 1.5 feet long ones, the 18 inches or 2. And he gave it to the Rebbe. The Rebbe smiled. Humor is the ticket. It's very important. Another story that happened I've said this many times, but when my father was in Yechidus with the Rebbe, my father was a grad student, and the Rebbe told my father something humorous. He said, the Rebbe said about himself, when he was in Sorbonne in university, there was a professor, a Jewish professor, Mertz, who was a Nobel Prize laureate in economics, a brilliant man. And he was teaching an introductory course in economics. The Rebbe said, I couldn't understand why is such a person teaching the introductory course in economics. He could be teaching the most advanced level. And then the Rebbe said to my father with a smile, and I found out that they pay the professors based on the number of students they have in their class. Which means to say, in the introductory class, you can have a lot of students, but the most brilliant of the brilliant, it's more of a select group. So they pay the professors based on the number of students. Anyway, okay. Halacha tes. The type of material that's mechoy b'tzvila. Hachoymer shemimen leitzil hakli. The vessel, the material that the vessel is made from. HaTorah chiva tzvila rak b'kli matechas levad. The Torah said you have to toivel metal vessels. Parshas Klimidion Huskuru rak shisha sugi matechas. The Torah mentions 6 types of materials. Vehem zohab, gold, kesef, silver. Nechoshes, copper, barzel, iron, the deal, tin, oifaris is lead, oifaris. Im kol zeh yesh oimim ki kol sugi matech tzrei metzil min ha-Torah. Some say all metals are mechoy b'tzvil min ha-Torah, which would mean aluminum also. Yesh omnam acholkim, though, those that are different, say shirak sugim elechoy metzil. Only the aforementioned 6 metals, namely gold, silver, copper, iron, tin, and lead, those have a chiyuv min ha-Torah. Others are chayiv only with Rabbanan. Aval sugim chadoshim, new materials like aluminum that were not mentioned in the Torah are not chayiv min ha-Torah. Yesh leistapik l'divrei mim aluminum chayiv b'tfila fin with Rabbanan. Some say, well, we have to even table with Rabbanan. It's a whole discussion. It's better not to make a bracha when you table aluminum. So if you're tabling, let's say, a sheet pan made from aluminum that's real metal, I'm saying real aluminum, not disposal, you definitely should table it, but some say without a bracha. Or table it in conjunction with another tefillah, another vessel that has a chiyuv of tefillah with a bracha, like you table it together with let's say, a vessel made out of gold, silver, copper, or iron, or leather, or tin. What happens if it's made from a metal that's a mix? It's a hybrid. We have hybrids. We have hybrid vehicles. We have hybrid vessels. In Rubu, if most of the components, the ingredients in this material are from the type that are chiyuv min ha-Torah, then it's hybrid fil b'bracha. Then you have to make a bracha. In Rubu, misuk shalinisku b'Torah. If most of the material is from a material that's not mentioned in the Torah, yat pilena b'lei bracha, you table without a bracha. Avol kli cheres, an earthenware vessel, eitz ve'evan, stoneware and from wood, einam tzricha tefillah. Those do not have a chiyuv of tefillah at all. So a wooden spoon, a wooden bowl, or a stone vessel does not have a chiyuv of tefillah at all, as long as it's not coated with glass. Today, a lot of the coating is not with glass anyway, so you have to find out if you have a question. Now, glass itself, we're going to discuss now, because glass has properties about it that are similar to metal, because you can crush up glass and refire it, just like metal. You could melt it and remake it. By the way, for those of you, I mention this usually in the class, for those of you that want to learn more about this process, can take a trip up to Corning, New York, 5 hours from here. Go to the Corning Glass Museum. I've been there like 3 or 4 times. A nice trip. See how glass is made. You can even do you see live demonstrations. You can even do so. I think make an appointment and make your own glass. So it's a nice experience. It's a ride, but yeah. Kli zechuches, glass vessels. Yud. Kli zechuches einem chayav mitzvil min ha-Torah. Glass is not a chayav of tefillah min ha-Torah. V'komokem mikivin shetchun asam. Since its properties are similar to that of metal, if they're broken, one can fix them through, I guess, melting it and then all that. Rabbinically, is the chiyuv of tefillah. We make the bracha to make a crystal or crystal vessel, a glass vessel, chasinas Asia Pyrex, Shem Zchuch best, which are really glass, Chayom B'Tfilah, B'Chiyah B'Tfilah. What about plastic? Mitam zehoyeroi litpogam plastic. For this reason, we should also table plastic. Regam plastic shenish beru efshla takna matata. Even plastic that breaks, you can fix with melting it and do the same thing. I have a company that makes plastic bags. They take beads, they melt them. Then there's a time when when it's very hot, the plastic is like a gas, essentially. And then it starts to cool and solidifies into a plastic again, and then they can mold it. Achadas composting many doesn't mean tzvil at all. The meaning is that plastic is not required. Misha if someone who wants to be stringent, the litzbo clay plastic and the table plastic be careful not to make a bracha. I just want to clarify, we're talking about plastic that's non-throwable. So if it's plastic, like buy a plastic pitcher that you meant to keep, so some people are machmer to table it, but even then you would do it without a bracha. A plastic bottle, let's say you have the sports cap, water bottle, first of all, it's plastic, but the main reason is because it's a throwaway item.
I have two questions. I think the first one is there like a consensus within like the law that whether plastic does need to be labeled or not? Because I've heard different things. Like my rabbi back home, like enough because the plastic doesn't need to be labeled, but like I've heard about like the one here and my friends here will label plastic. And then my second question about that is I have if the law does label plastic overall, I have like a bunch of plastic stuff that like I use in my kitchen back home, that kind of thing. That I think my friend will see with that an issue.
So, first of all, I'm not aware of anybody who holds that plastic is required to be toilet. There's no clear. The question, there is a concept of someone who wants to be machmir to toivel, they do so without a bracha. So if someone's in a position where they could toivel the plastic without a bracha, Tovei aleim bracha, they should be blessed. No, that's a bad word. It should be blessed. But you don't have to. Today, we live in a society where there's a lot of things that are created and invented. We have new materials that they didn't have in the olden days. Right? There are many types of materials today. They're hard to actually scale up to, what are they really made from? Should be consider them to be earthenware or glass. Derech mashal, by way of example, sugam nikra corning, like corning. There's a whole question whether or not they're obligated to be toiveled. And the next halacha gets into the disposable pan, which reminds me of something that I consider a little bit humorous. Before Pesach, all the Jewish stores have these big signs by those areas where they sell all the pans. These are the 9x13 pans that your wife asked you to buy. The husbands, they don't know what they're doing. They're hunting. They're going for the pans. This is the 9x13 pans that your wife buy. Anyway, Tavnis aluminum dako and a disposable aluminum pan. Rak l'shimish chad pami. It's used. It's meant to be used once. Ein nechshavas klei suda. It's not called klei suda. Bekiven she'eino imedes l'shimish kavua. It's not set for permanent usage. It doesn't need tefillah. In other words, a woman or any person buys vessels, I'm going to say to a friend, "Oh, I got this amazing aluminum pan. Can't wait to show it to you." It's a convenience item. When it comes to your vessels that you purchased, okay, your close friend, you'll bring her over, you show her. I like this feature about the pan. This one does not have anti-stick. This one has a thick bottom. Whatever. There's an affinity to it. Okay, we're going to stop here because it's already time. Have a wonderful Shabbos. We'll continue Be'ezrat Hashem. in our journey in the halachas of Tevilah. Good job.